Hello and welcome. This is India Sense. I'm Gauri Dwivedi. Let's start the show with headlines this evening. First up, first bilateral meeting in 5 years between Prime Minister Modi and China's Xi Jinping on the sidelines of the recently concluded Kazan BRICS summit. Leaders reaffirm peace on border a priority. The meet sets the stage for disengagement that will be completed by 28th of October. 24 disgruntled Liberal MPs pen letter to Justin Trudeau, serve Canada's Prime Minister a 4-day ultimatum to step down or face caucus revolt prospects. This even as Trudeau's ratings plummet a record 20%. Bangladesh is on the simmer again. Widespread protests have broken out. Students now want President Mohammed Shahabuddin to step down. With its democratic fabric yet to be restored, is Bangladesh's growing unrest a cause of concern for India?
Our bilateral trade stood at $33 billion in 2023, and cumulative German investments in India amount to nearly $15 billion.
German Chancellor Olaf Scholz' 3-day India visit underway, meets Prime Minister Modi, terms India as the anchor of stability in South Asia. And the US presidential campaign in its final stretch. Team Harris and Team Trump continue to garner last momentum in the crucial swing states that hold the key to the magic number of 270. All eyes on 5th of November. Our big story on India Sense this Friday. Winds of change are now blowing in the India-China relationship. There's now a thaw that has taken place in the New Delhi-Beijing relationship. After 17 rounds of working mechanism meetings, 21 rounds of core commander level meetings, 18 months of China not having an ambassador in India, and well over 4 years since the 15th June 2020 Galwan clash. The Asian giants have agreed to disengage on the border. The announcement came a day before the Kazan heads of state BRICS summit that paved the way for the first bilateral between Prime Minister Modi and his Chinese counterpart Xi Jinping in 5 years. Listening to Prime Minister Modi, we come back and talk more of this.
सीमा पार पिछले 4 वर्षों में उत्पन्न हुए मुद्दों पर बनी सहमति का हम स्वागत करते हैं। सीमा पर शांति और स्थिरता बनाए रखना हमारी प्राथमिकता रहनी चाहिए।
All right, before we explore the changing geopolitical winds that have had a role in the recent thaw, including New Delhi's elevated status in the world order, let's really find out the on-ground implications of this agreement. Now, firstly, it has made de-escalation possible, facilitating Indian troops to resume patrolling up to their old points in Depsang and Demchok, the 2020 status. It also provides for stabilization, potentially reducing confrontations at the friction point along the LAC, and most importantly, it's really a measure that opens window for further dialogue on a whole host of bilateral fronts. But New Delhi has been cautious, and Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman made a statement, and that highlights how New Delhi is taking this a step at a time. After the Galwan clash, New Delhi made clear it was ready to play hardball. It was the first deadly confrontation since 1975 and resulted in casualties on both sides. Now, what India did, it restricted investments from China, severed direct flights, banned dozens of Chinese apps, TikTok and others, and that figure actually went up to 321 by the end of New Delhi's measures. And those restrictions remain. Beijing is definitely looking to resume direct flights and flow of Chinese investments in India, but some of those economic restrictions remain. Of course, Xi Jinping knows very well that the Chinese economy needs the Indian market, and that's because much has changed in the world order since 2020 when COVID pandemic came and the Galwan clash actually took place. Beijing now needs that growth boost to fix its dwindling economy. China is also facing increasing Western pressure along its multiple frontiers, whether it's the Taiwan Strait, the South China Sea, Western sanctions on Chinese firms as well as individuals, all playing into the Chinese statecraft and leading into what we are seeing. The recent trends in the upcoming elections in the US have also been extremely worrying for Beijing, and they should be so, because a Donald Trump victory would in fact most certainly guarantee more strained relations with Washington, another round of tariff war, and China doesn't need another frontier. If Donald Trump is in Washington, then it needs to close that frontier when it comes to New Delhi. But that's not it all. In fact, China knows New Delhi now sits on the global high table. India's nuanced position, whether in regard to the Russia-Ukraine conflict or the Israel-Hamas war, is testimony to India's elevated status. And New Delhi continues to maintain cordial relations with the West. It has time and again rallied for its partners, whether in the East or the global South. But geopolitics aside, the agreement also comes despite India's growing ties with Taiwan when it comes to the semiconductor ecosystem, something that India is very clear about, and that sits at geotechnological game plan for India going forward. And it's interesting to note that these winds of change are not sudden, but set in motion ahead of Prime Minister Modi's third term. China appointed its new ambassador to India on the 10th of May. The appointment also ended 18 months of vacuum between the two countries. In fact, the longest vacancy since 1976. And May 10th's surprise appointment was followed with a rather clear message by the Chinese military spokesperson on the 12th of June, 3 days after Prime Minister Modi took oath. The update shared on social media platform X advocated for relevant border issues being handled properly. It underlined Beijing's intent to do so because of the changed environment it now sits in. But while the New Deal does not mean an end to all border disputes that New Delhi and Beijing they've been having on multiple fronts, but what it does allow is focus on several other bilateral aspects, which was missing till now. And maybe she is also looking to garner some good karma, for all you know. After all, in 1950, Mao had reminded the Indian ambassador of a popular saying that Chinese who do good in their lifetime would probably get reincarnated in India in their next life. All right, on to the wide-angle story of the show. They say it's prudent to weigh your words carefully before uttering them. Well, Bangladesh's President Mohammed Shahabuddin is learning the hard way. We told you last week that Bangladesh is witnessing rapid Islamization, something that's worrying the entire neighborhood. And the scenes unfurling in Dhaka are now suggesting just that. Tensions are rising yet again as protests echo the political turmoil that's being seen during the ouster of former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. Now, how might this impact the wider region, especially India? Security challenges, geopolitical challenges, all that this report sums up for you.
Some might call it a momentary lapse of judgment, while others a simple faux pas. But it has brought Bangladesh to the brink of yet another upheaval and sitting President Shahabuddin to being ousted. President Shahabuddin told a local newspaper last week that he had not seen Sheikh Hasina's resignation letter as she fled to India in August during a student-led uprising. His statement has poked holes, if not entirely demolished, the peaceful transition of power narrative peddled by Mohammed Yunus. In fact, Yunus was on record only last month warning Sheikh Hasina in case she thought of breaking her silence. Actions speak louder than words, and Bangladesh's interim government's actions following the so-called peaceful takeover are worrying. Since its inception, it has been trying to rewrite Bangladesh's history books. It's erasing signs of the country's liberation struggle and Sheikh Mujibur Rahman, or Bongo Bandhu, Sheikh Hasina's father. At the same time, it's also tearing up the democratic fabric of Bangladesh. It has paved the way for the return of the banned outfit Jamaat-e-Islami Bangladesh, whose infamous leader was convicted of war crimes for helping the Pakistani military in the 1971 massacre. An unlikely priority for a government that's dealing with the aftermath of the worst floods in the last 3 decades. Increased loans from local banks in the face of falling tax collections and surging foreign debt. A massive $400 million dent to its flourishing garment industry, and constant attacks on its minority Hindu community. Yunus has still not given any time frame to conduct fresh elections. He claims the country needs certain reforms to not allow repetition of what happened in the past. But he has shied away from providing a finer picture. However, he did mention the starting point. In a realistic world, such a plan would take years to even reach execution. As Bangladesh teeters on the edge and its interim government continues pulling the wool over its citizens' eyes, the world and New Delhi are watching closely and fearing a path that could mirror its neighbor, Pakistan.
All right, this is the Inside Story segment on the show. We shift focus now to Canada, where rumblings of dissent are only growing louder. In fact, Justin Trudeau's own Liberal lawmakers have issued him an ultimatum that they want him out. The Canadian Prime Minister, who maligned India for domestic political gains, seems to have been living on borrowed time without a thought for tomorrow. This report tells you how Justin Trudeau is now completely running out of time.
Is he investing in Canadians?
Not worth the cost, crime, and corruption.
He wants to harm Canadians.
After 9 years of the Liberal NDP government, taxes up.
Taxes are up, costs up.
Costs up, crime is up.
Taxes are up, costs are up, crime's up, and time is up. Time is up.
And time is up.
Paralyzed Parliament.
Why? He's made their life worse.
The writing seems to be on the wall for Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Disgruntled leaders from his own Liberal Party of Canada have served him a 28th October deadline. The ultimatum: step down or face the prospects of a caucus revolt. Not one or two, but around 24 Liberal lawmakers signed the letter addressed directly to Prime Minister Trudeau. And they've done so with good reasons, or reasons in this case, if you will. The Pierre Poilievre-led Conservatives have gained a nearly 20-point lead. Only last month, Trudeau's party lost a seat it held for over 50 years in the Montreal by-polls. Politics aside, Trudeau's 9-year term has been an expensive bargain for over 40 million Canadians. While the cost of living crisis, coupled with the acute housing shortage, has broken the back of ordinary Canadians, Trudeau's regime's many policy failures, especially pulling the rug from under Canada's immigration policies, have delivered the knockout punch. What's worse, Trudeau's looking out for number one attitude, the unsubstantiated and wild allegations against India, are a prime example. But his bluff has been called out. The discontent isn't just confined to the legislature. Demonstrations are erupting across the country. Canadians are demanding accountability. They're at the end of their rope, and Trudeau will most likely not even survive till the next elections. Politics will continue, and the world will eventually move on. But the real casualty of one man's desperation to hang on to power will be the India-Canada relationship and the millions affected. It would be known as the biggest tragedies of our times, one which may take years to undo.
All right, on that note, we slip into a very short break. We come back with a key voice ahead of the US elections in its last lap. Stay with us. Welcome back. This is India Sense. It's now time for the Top Voice segment on the show. We have a US Congressman Shri Thanedar, who's an important diaspora voice, speaking to us ahead of the US elections, which are now in their last lap. Congressman, thanks much for speaking to me on India Sense. Got to ask you, as things stand right now, the race looks extremely tight. What do you make of it?
Well, there are many issues. There is issues about economy. There is issues about immigration, abortion, gun control. You know, America is divided on many of these issues. And so there is almost an equal support for former President Trump and about the same level of support for Vice President Kamala Harris. So it's a very, very close election.
Okay. Okay, then let me then ask you in terms of the issues on which this election is really being fought on.
Well, look, most people know what Donald Trump is, and people also know who Kamala Harris is. They both have articulated their positions, so people are aware of it. There are not many people in the middle. So voter turnout will make the biggest difference. Now, we have 6 or 7 swing states. Swing states are ones, these states either vote Republican or Democratic. They go back and forth. And depending on how the swing state voting happens, the voter turnout, which party is able to get their supporters to the voting booth will matter. Will the young people show up? Will the African American people show up? What about the Arab Americans who are bothered by the Gaza issues? Will they show up? Will they vote Democratic that they normally vote? There are a lot of unanswered questions.
Congressman, Detroit, in fact, is as blue as it gets. Or is it now turning purple? Because that's what the heat really seems to suggest. It's not over. And this is really not in Democrats' camp right now.
Oh, Michigan is absolutely a purple state. It's a toss-up. Remember, in 2016, Trump won that election with about 11,000 votes. And 4 years after that, Joe Biden, a Democrat, won that state. So this state has gone back and forth. And this time it's going to be no different. Unfortunately, Trump came to Detroit and he started saying bad things about Detroit, which was not a very good move. And many people in Detroit really were sensitive about it, and they did not take it well that Trump is attacking the city of Detroit.
All right. Then, Congressman, let me also talk to you about the fact that you're a big diaspora voice. How do Indian Americans really see this election, and what are the issues that matter to the diaspora in these elections?
Well, Indian Americans are very, very critical because this election is going to be decided. Michigan is going to be won or lost by a few thousand votes. Now, there are over 100,000 Indian Americans in Michigan. Now, often the voting percentage is only about 10 or 15% among Indian Americans, which is unfortunately very, very low. And so many people don't bother to vote. They feel like their vote doesn't matter, or they feel like they are not really interested in politics. Unfortunately, politics, who is in the government, who is the president, which party controls the White House, which party controls the House of Representatives, the US Congress, the US Senate, matters in terms of immigration, matters in terms of economic policies. So nobody should be sitting at home. People should be going out, voting, making sure that their vote, they express their opinion. Doesn't matter which party you vote for, but you got to make sure that you go into the voting booth and exercise your democratic right. Indian Americans, just like any other Americans, are part of this mainstream America. These Indian Americans have accepted America as their country, adopted country. And now it is their civic duty that they go show up at the polling place and express and exercise their voting right.
Indeed, Congressman, a lot is being said about the fact that this is an election where there's a very high amount of undecided voters. How are parties reaching out to those set of voters?
See, the voter apathy is a major issue. More than undecided, it's more apathy, people feeling that their vote doesn't matter. And those are the people that are staying home. There are some voters like the Arab American, the Muslim voters, who are upset with the Biden-Harris administration on their position in Gaza. And these voters either are not voting or they're voting for Donald Trump, which is a mistake, but that's what they are planning to do. So how much of the Arab American vote will go to Trump is unknown. What about the African American vote? Will they show up to the voting booth? What about the men, African American men? What is the gender difference? Right now, Trump is leading among men. About 15-20% of lead Trump has among men. However, Kamala Harris has a lead among women. So there is the gender issues. There are young people against, as opposed to older people. Rural people have different viewpoints than urban people. So there are different groups. There's so many changes, so many different permutation combinations can happen and it's so very difficult to predict which candidate will win.
All right, Congressman, thanks so much for speaking to me and best wishes for your upcoming election. All right, shifting focus now to the quick take segment on the show where we give you a quick roundup of some of the important stories. First up, in a bold move, India has dashed Pakistan's hopes for entry into the BRICS club. Prime Minister Modi underlined all decisions in regarding to adding new members need to be taken unanimously. It seems to be the final nail in the coffin when it comes to Pakistan's wishes. And in doing so, New Delhi has left Islamabad with a languishing dream of being able to join the economic forum. It is like being told you've got an invitation to the party only to find out that it's actually a cruel prank. With this diplomatic snub, India reaffirms its position as the regional heavyweight, while Pakistan's aspirations dissolve like morning mist. The question looms, will this deepen the divisions or spark a new strategy for reconciliation? All right, the second story that we're addressing, the battle lines have been drawn, candidates announced, and election campaigning is now in full swing in the big-ticket Indian states of Maharashtra and Jharkhand. These are crucial state assembly elections that are lined up in India. India's richest state, Maharashtra, will head to polls on the 20th of November, while the mining-rich state of Jharkhand will go to elections in two phases, on the 13th of November and on the 20th of November. Results will be known in a single phase, in fact, on the 23rd of November. The elections will see the BJP-led NDA facing a united opposition that hopes to perform better after the drubbing it received in the recent Haryana elections. All right, a story that I think everybody will now relate to. While India sends winter is descending in the capital, New Delhi. And guess what? It's the same song and dance all over again. Delhi's air quality has taken a turn for, well, the dramatic. Residents now need a GPS to navigate through the smog, and breathing masks have become the season's hottest accessory. Who needs a gym membership? Just step outside for a 5-minute jog and what you'll get is a full cardio workout trying to dodge the pollution. In fact, the air is so toxic, it might even win an award for the best supporting role in a dystopian film. Well, all I can say is stay tuned to find out whether the AQI can break its own record. All right, with that, it's a wrap on this edition of India Sense. Thanks so much for watching.